And at 10, bullying. Not talking about what it led to, but specifically the tormenting of the younger brother. While common among siblings, especially in media, this is just damn cruel. I mean, like, even Roderick wouldn't have ripped off one of Greg's plushy heads and then tormented him with it. So the bullying here is a damn shame. And honestly, the fact that William did nothing to reprimand his son for tormenting his other son only makes this worse, I'm sure. Which eventually caused him to escalate, and essentially escalate so much that, well, we all know what happened. But even without that, brothers who torment their younger brothers like that are cruel. Like, I tormented my sister, but I didn't like destroy her stuff so I could use it as a mask to then scare her even more. And I'm sure that he doesn't like just wear it to scare a crying child either. He probably just walks around with it on the regular just to make his younger brother mad, since, you know, he's wearing your stuffed animal's face. And at 9, encouraging Gregory. Assuming that Glamrock Freddy is possessed by Michael, even if I don't think it's likely, Michael, as Glamrock Freddy, straight up encourages Gregory to risk his life in order to get out of the Pizzaplex, when in all honesty, the safest thing to do would be to just keep him either in your stomach or in your green room until 6 AM, especially after the doors closed and he was definitely stuck. There was no need for this daycare, secret escape, hatch escape plan thing, okay? You could have just gone back the way you came and everything would have been fine. You would not have been suspicious, since you'd have at least appeared like you listened to Vanessa and went back to your green room, and then Gregory would have been safe, especially after you knew that there was a crazy bunny running around looking to slaughter people. So yeah, if Glamrock Freddy is possessed by Michael, he did a horrible job at protecting his surrogate younger brother, which kinda hurts the whole he protects Gregory because of crying child thing, doesn't it? And at 8, listen to his father. Now, this takes a bit of assuming, but less than assuming that Glam Freddy is possessed, so it's gonna be a spot higher. We learn in Michael's final speech in Sister Location that he went to find his sister because his father asked him to, saying something along the lines of, "I did it, I put her back together, just like you asked me to," which is, yes, in reference to Baby, but the issue I have with this is, why did he listen to his father? I don't think he learned about the horrible things his father did because of Baby. Like, I think he must have learned about it beforehand, maybe when he got Crying Child killed, since he was freaking out because the animatronic jaw should not have been able to crush his skull. And even if he didn't know about what William was doing, honestly, that could make this point even worse. Like, what other things did William ask his son to do, either while he was stuck in Fazbear's Fright, or before that Michael did without question? That's a thought that really worries me, and maybe Michael has more to repent for than just hurting his brother. And at 7, tackles Vanny. Okay, so yeah, sure, this is a good thing because he's tackling the bad guy, but let's be honest, Freddy is kind of dumb and his critical thinking skills are lacking, to say the least. If you think about it, he doesn't really think through any of his decisions despite being an incredibly advanced AI. When we're on the top of the Pizzaplex in the rooftop ending, after Freddy sets fire to the Pizzaplex below us without a real proper way out planned, we get to the roof of a burning building and meet Vanny. No idea how she got up there before us, but that's not the point right now. But after being able to see her with Roxy's eyes, he tackles her off the roof of a burning building. Now, originally I questioned our escape plan, okay, but Gregory does then run down the fire escape afterwards. But if he was so concerned about Vanny, why wouldn't Freddy just grab us and run? Like, why did he tackle her? It seems like the dumbest decision because, Freddy left us on the top of a burning building when we're basically the size of a 4-year-old. Like, I get that she's a bad person, but if she came after you when you were with Gregory, couldn't at that point you then just punch her or do whatever, okay? Your priority isn't to defend Gregory if you're just leaving us on the top of a burning building. Heat rises, my dude. We would have been screwed. And that fire escape, damn, that's gonna be hot. And at 6, walking corpse. Now, Sister Location also ends with a scene of Michael walking around town literally purple and smelling god-awful. Some see this as his body rotting thanks to the animatronic parts inside him. I like to think that it's because the robotic parts inside him are beating up his inside so much that it's causing severe bruising. Because never have I once seen a decaying body be shown as purple in color. Every version of rotting corpses, especially like living corpses, with zombies being the most common example when rotting, are shown as green in cartoons, like Minecraft zombies for instance, or Plants vs. Zombies. So the purple in reality just can't be decay because it just doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. But if it is the case, walking around in public smelling like that is a crime in and of itself. Holy crap. And if it's not the case, this man obviously hasn't showered in ages. And whether that's due to a personal choice or the choice of the animatronics inside him, damn, it's still a horrifying mistake. A damn shame is what it is. Halfway through into number 5 doesn't kick us out. Okay, when you think that your friend is supposed to protect you, having them suddenly rip you out of their chest and kill you is certainly a surprise. And while you may be thinking something like, well, that's your own damn fault for running out of power, you know what? I would normally agree with you on that, okay? But when this game establishes right off the bat that if Freddy runs out of power, he will kick you out, when he doesn't in the future, it's pretty goddamn stupid. Like, whatever. Okay, yeah, I shouldn't have let him run out of power, but let me tell you a story. I was playing through Security Breach and I ended up getting stuck inside of Freddy. This was my first time playing, and like I had gotten into a recharge station, and when I came out, I was unable to exit the animatronic. So after being kicked out the first time that Freddy ran out of power, and like because the story forced us to, right before you learn how to distract Chica by knocking over the paint cans, I figured that the way to get out of him when I was stuck would just be to wait and let him run out of power, so that I wouldn't have to lose progress since I hadn't gotten the chance to save in a while, because that's just how the game was set up. So I waited, and then when he ran out of power, I died, resetting me to my last save point. So all I did at that point was waste time, all because this game had established that if you ran out of power, he would kick you out and run to a recharge station. That's why I'm deciding to use that last little bit of power to open up his stomach, tear us out, and then rip us a new one is one of the worst things that Freddy has or could have done. Okay, it's like the death coin in FNAF. If you establish something, you keep it the same way, God. And at 4, animatronic escape. Going to investigate a secret underground facility when your homicidal maniac of a father asks you to is one thing. It's another thing when you become the vessel through which 5 separate animatronics escape into the outside world to begin wreaking havoc. Like, sure, you couldn't really help it, but the canon ending to the game is seemingly the one where you listen to Baby and then end up getting scooped. So in actuality, Michael was being just a big old dum-dum here. After everything, you should know that the possessed animatronics, even if they are possessed by your sister, are a bad idea. Especially if you've been through the other locations already and have been attacked by those very same haunted animatronics. Have you never seen an episode of Supernatural? Like, every spirit is a vengeful spirit after this long, bro. Come on. Just salt and burn the animatronic and then go home. Wait, could the whole, like, remnant needs to burn thing be referenced to Supernatural? I hope so. Getting close to the end, and at number 3, lies. Speaking of the whole needing to recharge thing, where did that BS come from? None of the other animatronics seemingly need to charge every hour, and like I said, he doesn't lose power unless we're piloting him. And then when the hour in game rolls around, we don't get into the recharge station because he needs to charge. We get in to avoid the daycare attendant, okay? It's almost as if they released him so that Freddy getting in the recharge station every hour would make sense despite him not needing to do that. Oh wait, they would only do that if he was evil. And he needs to recharge basically every other minute if we're actually going by in-game time, since the time only moves as you progress through the story. Standing in one place, draining him of all of his power basically means that he loses all of his power in a microsecond in-game, which is insane. So, like, what's going on here? What's with the other lies that he's been spitting this whole time? Because it isn't the only thing. And there are so many other suspicious moments in this game that we could do a whole list about how Gregory got lucky just by the sheer stupidity of other characters. Actually, write that down. But ultimately, in at number 2, Chomp. I think we all know that Michael is certainly at least partially responsible for the bite of 83. Because while William did superpower the Fredbear jaw, if Michael hadn't put his brother's head in the mouth, it wouldn't have mattered. While yes, he thought that he'd be safe because it's an animatronic mouth, how bad can it really be? He still definitely contributed to Crying Child's death. It's interesting the way that, like, fate works. In this instance, we can really blame anyone for the death of Crying Child, because I am absolutely certain at the very least Michael blamed himself at the beginning. After learning what William was up to and what he did to the animatronic, maybe the guilt lifted slightly, but all that it would really do was assure himself that he didn't have the intention on killing his brother. But either way, without him, nobody would have put his head in the animatronic mouth. But yeah, getting your little bro chomped is definitely gonna cause some friction among the family members. Especially when, because of that, you're the only 2 family members left. And finally, and at number 1, nothing. Michael Afton's biggest sin in my mind is his ability to do nothing. Like, sure, he seems to be playing the good guy, going after his father and trying to undo his deeds, but really, Michael to me just seems like he's been playing hero this whole time while not actually doing anything. Sure, he says he's trying to right his father's wrongs and whatnot, but looking at him, he's not doing it because he's a good person. He seems to be doing it because he just feels bad and not because of some higher moral code. He blames blames himself for getting his brother killed, which subsequently means that anything he does to try and fix that is just to make himself feel better about it, because in the end, nothing's gonna bring his little brother back. And if anything, the FNAF 3 happiest day minigame is because of Henry, not Michael. And you know what? This guy, he doesn't have the balls to actually end his father once and for all. He says that he's gonna go come find him in the final scene of Sister Location, but then when he does, he's not the one to burn the place down, okay? Henry's the one who does that. Henry is the only one who's able to actually sack up and do anything about this. I mean, he does it in a horribly stupid way, but he still at least does something. If Michael really wanted to make sure that William was stopped, like I said earlier in the list, he wouldn't have let himself burn. He would have stayed alive, made sure that his dad was dead, made sure that his old man had kicked the animatronic-filled bucket, and then offed himself. But he lets himself burn so that he won't have to deal with knowing what his father did and live with the regret of hurting his brother. So, yeah, he didn't really do anything. And at 10 turns on us. The reason this is going to be our number 10 slot is because, well, technically it isn't Freddy that's turning on us. Technically speaking, it's William Afton taking control of Freddy's body and making him turn on us. Yeah, it's kind of up in the air. During the final boss fight, Freddy can be hacked by Burn Trap, and when this is going on, he'll stand in the middle of the room as a hazard and just start like jibbing out. If Burn Trap ends up successfully hacking him, meaning that you don't burn him before a timer runs out, Glamrock Freddy will chase after and kill Gregory, either by just like running at you or by pulling him out of his stomach if, you know, you're inside of Freddy when he's getting tortured, which is weird. That's a whole other issue. Gregory can still lure Freddy out of the way when he is being taken over, though, by calling him over to a different spot, hitting the right button, whatever version you're on. But I mean, like, come on, okay? Like, how is it that Freddy can't resist this at this point? Like, yeah, sure, it's Afton directly tapping into you, but he's also using a computer as a proxy. So it's basically the same thing as the original Glitch Trap virus that he ended up stopping somehow in the opening credits, okay? I don't know how this was supposed to make sense in universe, but either way, it's stupid, and Glamrock Freddy should be ashamed that this could have happened, even if canonically it didn't. But I still do think that Freddy is evil, okay? Check up in the top right corner, whichever one that ends up being, for the video explaining why, because yeah, it's a long one, if I remember. And at 9, copyright infringement. Okay, technically I don't think that this is actually copyright infringement, and it's more so a reference to a well-known figure, but it's definitely something that needs to be mentioned. At this point, I think everyone knows about the Glamrock Freddy pose that's meant to be a reference to Freddie Mercury, right? Yeah, I feel like it's a thing. The one from the introduction, and I think it was also maybe in the trailers. Well, I'm gonna use this number to be like a YouTube comment section and say that he's stealing it rather than making a reference, because whenever I say something as a reference to someone else, even subtly, so that only those who actually watch those other YouTubers would understand, people say that I'm trying to steal their thing, or that I'm taking it. Like, dude, bro, it's a reference, it's an homage, okay? Of course me saying that it's just a theory, a game theory is meant to be MatPat, okay? It's not me trying to steal it. Obviously, everyone knows where it comes from. You come here in between MatPat theories on FNAF, okay? Like, the same thing happens when I'm calling Chica Mommy, or doing the Eddie VR whistle, okay? That was terrible. It's a reference, okay? But everyone in the comments every time says that I'm stealing it. So I'm going to apply that logic to Freddy and say that he's stealing this pose, okay? Now watch all those same commenters that were attacking me come to defend Freddy now, okay? I'm gonna, you know what? I said defriend, leave it in too, okay? I don't care. And at 8 carries us. While yes, ripping us out of your stomach and tearing us to shreds with that last bit of power you have left is stupid, putting us in that chamber in the first place was a pretty goddamn stupid idea, and it was probably just at least equally as stupid. I mean, like, he even said it himself that it was a bad idea, but even after saying that, he lets us crawl inside anyway. And there were so many other options. Okay, I'll discuss the biggest issue later on, but seriously, why did he think that this would result in anything other than our death? It's a miracle that it didn't, honestly, especially when we're inside his stomach while he's getting recharged. This dude needs so much power that to fix him we need to juice him with a damn car battery, but we're just sitting inside him while he's getting all that power back from a station inside of him, where the wires and robotic parts are. How did we not get electrocuted, okay? Like, yeah, we deal with a lot of dangerous things throughout this game, but running around inside Freddy is supposed to be the safe space according to the game. But looking at it logically, it might even have been the worst idea of all. in its 7 Bad Babysitter. Now, while we don't know the details about what's going on inside the Midnight Motorist minigame, although I think we kind of figured it out, link to that video is in the iCard, I think it's safe to say that this is the Afton family, and particularly the Afton males. Seemingly, Michael was babysitting Crying Child while their father was at work, but Michael was just watching TV and not his little brother, which allowed his little bro to break his window and go to the pizza place yet again, which I'm sure made his father so angry that when he got his son back home, he wasn't the nice father I'm sure he pretends to be. So Michael's negligence ended up getting his little brother in trouble and God knows what else, because all he wanted to do was watch his show, which is possibly Immortal and the Restless. Which makes this even worse because it's a fucking soap opera. And before any of you get mad at me and tell me that this isn't freaking Michael, okay? The one who tells William to go easy on Crying Child is most definitely Michael and not William's wife, since this is after William started killing, so his wife was gone. Plus, it's the same gray shirt that Michael wears at like literally all the time, and he's in front of the same TV that we sit in front of in sister location. That's about as clear cut as the series gets. In its 6th Power. What is the deal with this guy and actually needing to recharge like every 5 minutes? Okay, in like the game sense, time isn't really moving when I'm running around for 5 hours since I haven't actually progressed the story. So if this animatronic is supposed to need to recharge every hour only, why is this such a big issue? And why does he only use power when we're actually inside of him like a mech, okay? Like, if this was the case, shouldn't this man be losing power when we summon him to like grab us down in the 3rd basement floor? And why does he need to recharge but seemingly all the other animatronics don't? Okay, I never see Chica, Roxy, or Monty in a recharge station. Even if you're around where they should be around, or like where they should be in a recharge station when the hour hits, okay? It's stupid, it's confusing, and it doesn't make any sense. It's almost like Freddy is doing this to us on purpose, either because he thinks it's funny, or maybe he really is working for Vanny, but needs to gain our trust and makes excuses for why he can't be around us all the time, so then he can go and sneak off and tell Vanny what's going on. Or why we can't just like hide inside of him all night, okay? There's something fishy going on with this animatronic, and I swear in the next game we're gonna find out that he ended up betraying us and ripping us to shreds off screen. Halfway through into number 5, definitely evil. Okay, now I know that nobody wants to believe me on this, and I understand why. We all want to hold out hope that finally one of the animatronics is good and trying to help us. But Glamrock Freddy is almost certainly evil and just waiting for the perfect moment to strike. We have also made a whole video on this as well, so if you want to check that one out, please do. But like, this guy makes some hella sketchy choices throughout our entire time at the Pizzaplex that only makes things worse for us. He takes us to get healed despite us saying no and having a limited time to actually get out of the Pizzaplex, which then makes us get locked inside, especially because that 30 seconds would have actually gotten us out the door. We also just sit in the booth when we're supposed to be getting healed and don't actually get healed, by the way. He was unable to access the main Pizzaplex network despite having no reason to be disconnected from it because he wasn't supposed to be suspected, and after Vanessa leaves Freddy without his head and parts in service, she sees him fully reassembled in less than 5 minutes and doesn't question it, almost like it was the plan the whole time. There is literally no other living human in the Pizzaplex, okay? Especially at this point. So who else could have put him back together? There are no robots that are doing that because there's precautions to keep humans safe aside from the one in the cylinder, and we don't see any actual staff bots near that area, okay? The only thing that makes sense is that Freddy is secretly evil, and maybe even he doesn't know it, but either way, he's gonna turn on us, okay? I'm calling it. It's gonna happen. In it for Monty's claws. Monty's whole personality is destroying things, okay? He likes to do it and is capable of doing it because of the claws that they installed onto his character so that he could pluck the strings of the bass guitar. I guess animatronics don't like using guitar picks for some reason. Either way, when Freddy gets these claws, he's also able to start destroying things and breaking open barriers, which is just kind of weird when you think about it. Like, was Monty this way before getting the claws? Because if he was, he couldn't really do much damage, since we needed the claws to even be able to smash through small fence gates. So if he already was like that, why would they have given him the death machines for hands? Or wasn't that like the hands gave him the ability to smash things, which turned into him smashing everything he could? I mean, it's definitely possible, okay? We've seen Weirder come out of the FNAF series, and if that was the way that this played out, would it also happen for Freddy? Like, is Freddy going to see how much he likes smashing stuff and then just go absolutely bananas? I think it could happen. And even if it doesn't, the fact that Freddy has these destructive capabilities and then just doesn't punch out the other animatronics during the final boss fight, friends or not, especially when Afton isn't trying to take control of him, like when Roxy comes in and you have to crawl inside and then scream. Yeah, why didn't he just punch her out then? Okay, that's messed up. He could have done so much more, but he just chose not to. Getting close to the end, and in number 3 left his sister. Now, don't get me wrong. Allowing yourself to be a vessel for a group of evil bags is one thing. I really felt like Dean Winchester there for a minute. But the other ending doesn't actually let Michael off the hook either. In the other ending, the non-canon one, I'm guessing, where Ennard attacks you while you're watching Immortal and the Restless, you end up actually leaving your sister in the underground storage facility for dead. Well, not for dead since she's already possessing an animatronic, but you know what I mean. You didn't even try to set her free. And assuming that that's what you did in the previous games, you already know how to set them free. So like, why didn't you set your sister free? Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, my sister and I, we don't always see eye to eye. Sometimes she can't take my hilarious jokes and my brilliant sense of humor, but I'd still release her soul if it was trapped inside a 6-foot-tall giant robot. Okay, I would. But this man just leaves. And we know that he knows it's Elizabeth. He just doesn't care. What a great big brother this guy is. You already screwed over one sibling, why not the other one too, right? Speaking of which. Penultimately, in at number 2, staying until 6. Glamrock Freddy straight up encourages Gregory to risk his life in order to get out of the Pizzaplex, when in all honesty, the safest thing to do would just be to keep him in your stomach or in your green room until 6 a.m., especially after the door had closed and he was definitely stuck. Okay, there was no need for this daycare secret escape hatch BS. Okay, you could have just gone back the way you came and everything would have been fine. You would have not been suspicious since you'd have at least appeared like you listened to Vanessa, then went back to your room after she told you to, and then Gregory would have been safe, especially after you knew that there was a crazy bunny bitch running around the Pizzaplex trying to slaughter him. So yeah, if Glamrock Freddy is possessed by Michael, he did a horrible job being a surrogate older brother or whatever the situation is, okay? That kind of hurts the whole he's there to protect Gregory because of the crying child thing. You can think of all the excuses for him that you want, okay? But if Gregory had just waited in Freddy's green room, everything would have been fine. Vanessa would have had no reason to check there since she didn't have at any point throughout the game, even when Freddy pops back up 5 minutes after being left in parts and service with his freaking head removed. Like, who else is going to put him back together aside from Gregory? Like, you could have simply let Gregory stay with you in your room or kept him in your cake hole in your chest until 6 a.m. because we can go into recharge stations with him. Okay, so why couldn't we just chill in his chest the whole time if it was actually that safe, okay? God damn it. I hate this series. And finally, in at number 1, selfish. This whole list is going to make so many people angry, but I think that this number especially is going to make those hardcore Freddy stans absolutely furious, and I think that's hilarious. Glamrock Freddy, no matter what way you slice it, is selfish. Some people assume that he's possessed by Michael Afton, okay? I just mentioned it, which, if it is true, that means that he's only protecting you because he feels bad and thinks that he caused his brother's death, which he partly did. Or, if he isn't possessed by Michael Afton, this Freddy is very loose with his so-called moral code. He tells you not to hurt his friends and that he doesn't want their upgrades, but then he takes them anyway. You could argue that it's in his programming because like we hit the button on the monitor or whatever, but it's also supposed to be in his programming to hunt us down. Obviously, he isn't really working through his normal specs, but nevertheless, after hearing about the brutal mutilation of his friends, he still lets you install these upgrades into his body and then doesn't bat an eye about how you got them or that, you know, his friends are in his body now. It's incredibly messed up when you really think about it, okay? Basically, in this game, Gregory is a black market organ harvester and dealer, but for animatronics. And Freddy doesn't care, because it gets him a cool new ability. Yeah, that's right, I said it. In a 10 repair cost. Now, I get that in this moment Freddy is trying to be a hero, okay, but this guy doesn't think through any of his plans. Because in the Fazer Blast ending, this man is just wailing on the Vanny staff bots or getting himself torn to shreds. And sure, he was trying to protect Gregory or whatever, but this man destroyed multiple staff bots only to get himself destroyed in the process. Like, why fight them off when we can, I don't know, run away and escape? And even if you don't want to think about other options, okay, think about the repair cost that comes with reassembling those bots and Freddy. Like, dude, you could have told Gregory to run and then gotten yourself destroyed destroyed, which would not only have saved the company money, but also probably resulted in you not getting reprogrammed when you're reconstructed. So this time, way to go, buddy. You ruined yourself. You could have been rebuilt the way you were, okay, all protective and whatnot, but instead, now they know that you're violent against anyone who's actually affiliated with the company, so now they're gonna reprogram you. Well done. In at 9, possibly possessed. This is only a possibility, hence why it's at number 9, but there is evidence for it. But whether you believe it or not, okay, Glamrock Freddy being possessed only ends poorly for him. I mean, seriously, if this is Michael inside of Glamrock Freddy somehow, this only makes the character worse because Michael isn't a good person, or rather is only a good person to make himself feel better, and doesn't really do anything all that good throughout the series. The happiest day minigame was seemingly the puppet throwing the party to release the spirits. Fire in FNAF 6 was set by Henry, suggesting that he was also the one who set the FNAF 3 fire. Oh, and Michael? He ended up freeing 5 killer robots from a secret underground storage and testing facility after his psycho serial killer dad asked him to go down there and check it out, after he knew that his father was a serial killer. Assuming that this takes place around the same time as FNAF 3, given the burned down Fazbear Frights in the end of the sister location final scene, or even just after 1993, which would make sense. So yeah, if Glamrock Freddy is possessed, that guy. In at 8, FNAF AR. Okay, now this isn't exactly Glamrock Freddy's fault or his doing, but way back in December of 2020, Kieran Sinha, the CEO of Illumix, the company behind FNAF AR, told Daco in an interview that Glamrock Freddy was confirmed to be added to FNAF AR Special Delivery in the future. But it's been nearly 2 years, and Freddy, nor any other security breach animatronic, has actually been added. Now, this is bad no matter what way you look at it, okay? Like, whether he gets added or not, okay? If he doesn't get added, then people are going to be disappointed. But if he does get added, then it's going to be a mess with so much of the supposed story that we get in Security Breach just not making sense anymore. Since the whole point of FNAF AR is that these are animatronics being sent out to families to rebuild their reputation. However, this means that there must be multiple of these animatronics to send out. So there would be a warehouse full of multiple Glamrock Freddys. But we're led to believe in-game that if Freddy goes missing, Monty ends up taking over as the leader of the band. But if that is the case, why wouldn't they just use one of the other Glamrock Freddy models? Or slap his casing on a new endo like Vanessa suggests in Parts and Service. Adding Freddy to Special Delivery only makes things more complicated, but if he doesn't get added, people will get mad. So you know what? Might as well make them angry mad instead of insane mad, you know? Because we're trying to figure out the damn lore, and that would drive me literally crazy. In at 7, stupid answers. Okay, look, I get the idea that stupid questions get stupid answers, but honestly, for being this advanced of an AI, this guy is dumb as hell. Oh, what was that? Oh, that's a fountain. Really? No shit, Sherlock. Of course it's a fountain. What are you on about? Okay, I get that you can't see Vanny, but given the CRT effects that we get when she's around, assuming that we are human, there is no way that you can't even feel that something was different there, okay? My question is, why are you unable to see her? But you can then see her when you get Roxy's eyes? That seems so stupid to me. Like, why would you block every animatronic but Roxy from seeing you? And if you didn't block every animatronic and only blocked Freddy, why? What would have been the point of that? The whole point of this is that nobody is suspicious of Freddy actually being the guy who's helping Gregory, okay? Even after Vanessa leaves Freddy with his head removed in the Parts and Service room, and then like 5 minutes later he can walk in front of her without her even batting an eye. So why would they make him unable to see Vanny? It's like whatever stupid blind spot they made or not, okay? Dude answers multiple questions with stupid answers that don't help anyone, alright? It's annoying. He could have done so much more. And at 6, harboring a criminal. The idea of protecting Freddy at first seems like a noble one. However, the more you look at it and the worse you see the world, you end up seeing things in my perspective. And this protecting a defenseless kid idea turns into Freddy harboring a criminal. Since as I've explained in the past, Gregory has committed multiple crimes. We in fact have a whole list on the crimes that Gregory has committed. From trespassing to murder, this kid has done a lot, and Freddy defends him the entire time. Sure, it's against bad people, but it doesn't mean that this kid is, like, in the clear, okay? It's messed up. He steals security badges, hundreds of dollars worth of merch, he destroys animatronics, he ends up killing Vanny in the Phaser Blast ending, and even steals Freddy in most of the other endings, which is grand larceny. This kid is a criminal, and Freddy encourages this behavior. He encourages and gives him the information required for Gregory to commit fraud with the daycare pass. He encourages Gregory to steal the security badges. He tells Gregory not to hurt his friends, but doesn't really do anything more than that. Gotta love the plausible deniability there. If he isn't even harboring a criminal, then he is most definitely an accomplice. So no matter what, this is not a good thing. Halfway through into number 5, burning. FNAF 6 is a pretty good game. It was something new and probably the most interactive FNAF game we've ever had since we got to make our own pizzeria. But the ending, while good and one of the most iconic speeches of all time, Michael letting himself go up in flames as well as the whole pizzeria is seriously dumb on his part. Like, bro, you've seen your father come back to life just as many times as anyone else. Like, at least keep kicking around for another year or two to make sure he's actually dead instead of just hoping he is. You know that this man is as relentless as Taco Bell after a night of binge drinking, yet you let it go. Just think about things. I wish for once one person in this series would actually think something through. And Henry encouraging him to stay just also seems like a bad idea to me. Straight up. Like, I get that you want nobody to remember this, but unless you've killed the parents of all the victims or everyone who's ever covered the story in the media, people are always going to remember this. So just stay alive, okay? Make sure the story is over, and then you can off yourself. Both Michael and Henry, honestly. God. In it 4 on your own. Now, given that there are 3 psycho animatronics roaming the Pizzaplex, ignoring all laws of robotics and trying to kill humans, why is it that the one animatronic trying to protect us is constantly leaving us? Okay? Like, originally, he left us so that he could charge or whatever, but after we get the tutorial and then we can have him, like, call, and we can call him to us, he never needs to recharge again, seemingly. I mean, like, come on. Okay? As long as you're not inside of his stomach, he doesn't lose power, which means that this man could be following us the entire time that we do all of these missions, but he doesn't. The game provides some excuses for certain areas, like he can't crawl under the door to El Chips, which is a total lie, because he definitely could. Or that if he touches the dance floor, he won't be able to stop himself from grooving. But why doesn't he follow us literally the rest of the time? Okay, it seems stupid to leave this small child on his own when 3 of your friends are trying to kill him. There's also a psycho bunny bitch running around, and a daycare attendant who definitely wants to do disturbing things to him every hour, okay? Why would you leave that kid alone? It's irresponsible and goes against everything we're supposed to believe about this guy, but we just accept it. Getting close to the end into number 3, cliffhanger. I love stories. I love telling stories, I love hearing stories, I love reading stories. Most of my favorite stories involve time travel, but I also love TV. And one thing that TV is really good at is keeping you hooked with cliffhangers. The issue is, that only works for TV. When I'm playing a game, I don't want to be left on a cliffhanger and then not have it be resolved that same game. That just feels like it's a way to try and force me to buy the next game so I can see the conclusion of how that plays out. Freddy, though, definitely provides us with a couple cliffhangers that never get resolved in Security Breach, no matter how hard you look. Most notably, I think, are There Is No Bunny in This Pizzaplex Not Anymore, and You Look Different to Me. The first one, of course, being in reference to Bonnie after Monty seemingly smashed him, and while we may not have gotten a confirmed explanation, at the very least we got that one duffel bag that explains that it was most likely Monty's fault that Bonnie isn't here. However, that second one, You Look Different to Me, is what Freddy says after we install Roxy's eyes onto him. Okay, he says that we look different to him now, but then he never mentions that again since Moondrop decides to show up. Okay, I don't get it. Why? Why would you do this? It's mean, okay? I hate mysteries. They need to be solved. And the only explanation that makes sense is that Gregory is a robot, but there's like that we can't know, okay? God damn it, Freddy. But ultimately, in at number 2, no warning. Okay, so Freddy can seemingly sense the other animatronics, or at least knows when Gregory is in danger somehow. Not quite sure how that works, but that's not the point I'm trying to make here. What I'm thinking is that if this guy can sense radio waves or connect to the main server whenever he isn't cut off from it for whatever reason, why didn't he warn us about the blob and how it's a total freak show when we encounter it on our way down to the Afton ending? Okay, I mean, like, the game requires us to be in Freddy at this point, otherwise we get insta-killed by the blob as we pass it. So why isn't Freddy questioning this giant mass of metal, tentacles, animatronic faces, and possibly even souls? Not even the slightest hint about it, especially since at this point he has Roxy's eyes, which allows him to see through walls and spot discs that would be hidden otherwise. So like, where's my warning, bro? Not even a little heads up saying like, oh yeah, we might have to worry about this thing. I can tell that it's at least semi-functional. No? Alright. And finally, in at number 1, Dugout Afton. Speaking of the Afton ending, while on our way down to it, Freddy straight up admits to being down here before. Quote from Freddy, "I know what this is. I have been here before. She brought me here. I found myself for the first time when I cleared the path. I did not want to, but I had no choice. Now I have a choice. I have changed. My friends are here. They are so angry, confused, but I can protect you." Hold on. Why is it that now you have a choice? Okay, what actually changed? Because some random kid being in the crowd and then being counted as a security breach could not have glitched you out that badly that all of a sudden you have free will again, especially since you didn't actually even meet or see Gregory until after you've glitched out. He also claims to have become sentient down here seemingly. Like, what else could I found myself for the first time when I cleared the path mean? And if he became sentient down there, why did he also not have any free will at that point? That makes absolutely no sense. None of this scene makes sense, but even though that's also messed up and certainly something that is mega ultra sus, he still helped dig out Afton, which in my mind is the biggest sin of all. Okay, willing or not, he still did it, and as someone who wants Aft permadead, I cannot allow that to stand. So yeah, number one on this list, absolutely. Your angry comments that you are typing literally right now will have no effect on this, okay? So don't even bother. There's no point. I've already made the video. That's all the time we have for today, friends. Thank you all so much for watching. I have been John Connor Monroe, and I'll see you in another video unless Freddy suddenly turns evil and attacks me, which is going to happen. I'm calling it. In at 10, breaking and entering. This kid is known for breaking into the Pizzaplex, as we learn through the therapy CDs that you can find at the end of the game. The ones revolving around Client 46 are certainly intended to be Gregory, and every time he breaks in, he ends up getting caught on camera or by technicians or someone working there. Enough times to actually mention it to his therapist, who then brings it up with Gregory. Breaking and entering would actually be what he'd be charged with if he wasn't under 12 and seemingly could actually get caught. But despite a few witnesses, the cameras never get a solid shot of him. Probably due to Vanny, since the camera was distorted when talking to something with bunny ears. I originally thought this distortion could be Gregory being a robot, however it was pointed out to me in the comments of the Gregory is in therapy theory video that the distortion was most likely due to Vanny. And at 9, trespassing. Okay, so while yes he does break into the Pizzaplex, he also ends up trespassing the entirety of the game. That's literally the premise behind this game. Gregory is trapped in there after it's closed, which instantly makes it trespassing. Like how you aren't supposed to stay overnight in a Walmart like people used to claim they were doing in YouTube videos. Yeah, well if they actually did that, it's trespassing. And so with this, he gets told to leave multiple times and the security guard is at least seemingly trying to help him get home. At least legally speaking she is. So assuming he ends up getting caught, he could be charged, although with everything else that happened I don't think they'd actually end up charging him. But he even goes into restricted sections of the Pizzaplex, like where we find the true ending and where we go after we crush Chica. So yeah, he's definitely trespassing in the entirety of this game. Ironically, he only ends up getting killed when he stops. And at 8, steals security badges. Not only is this just like a stealthy kid, he's also a thief. This guy steals so many things from the Pizzaplex, like not to mention all the little gift boxes you can find around. He also steals all the security badges that end up getting him level 7 clearance as a 6-year-old or however old he is. It's really unclear because he can't ride the go-karts alone and he can fit in Freddy's chest cavity but can also speak full sentences with proper grammar and stuff. No idea how old he is, but he's still able to gain level 7 clearance. That's ridiculous. I don't think I would technically count it as impersonating a security guard because he's not really doing that, but that is absolutely stealing. And this isn't the only time too. He steals more than just some prizes and some badges. It gets even worse than just stealing. Like worse in both the vein of the severity of the crime and in general the severity of the stealing. And at 7, memory loss? For a kid who is more than willing to climb inside Freddy and also get decked out in Fazbear Entertainment merch, he sure seems to forget quite a bit about these animatronics. Gregory, while stumbling on his own name, may not show obvious signs of memory loss. When he gets trapped in a security office when Chica's outside the door, his only way out is to make a pizza using a robot. Now he asks Freddy why he needs to or even should do this, and Freddy's response is because Chica loves pizza. Of course Chica loves pizza! That's been her brand since the start, for like 40 years in this series. There have been memes about how much Chica loves pizza. They made a whole Mazer-size center because Chica loved pizza so much and they wanted to explain how she lost her weight. Gregory even catches her eating garbage and pizza, for God's sake. And he doesn't know that she loves pizza? How? How does he not know that when wearing both a Fazbear Entertainment shirt and shoes? Yeah, seems a little sus if you ask me. Gregory definitely should be venting. And at 6, resisting arrest. So while most reports of resisting arrests are exaggerated, when it comes to Gregory, I don't really think it is. This man literally escapes the lost and found room while the police are supposed to be on their way. Yes, Vanny is coming to kill us, but if you think about it, you can escape even before we are aware of Vanny's presence, meaning that we are actively resisting arrest, or as close to arrest as it can be. Technically, if we look at it in a certain way, it could be considered a citizen's arrest, and I know that it's not how how it would work in real life, okay? So cool your jets before you comment. Wait, you already did comment? You were complaining about an earlier number? Wow. Who cares if it's not how things would work in the real world? This is a game. Afton wouldn't work like he does in the real world. Possession doesn't exist in the real world. So just like cool it, okay? Gregory is resisting arrest for breaking out of the lost and found room, and he also stole a screwdriver that he uses to do it. Plus, removing vent covers could also be considered. Halfway through into number 5, extreme measures. Speaking of which, Gregory being willing to kill Vanny at the end of the phaser blast room is pretty messed up, especially if this kid is meant to be like 10 or 11, which is what everyone seems to believe. This kid is easily able to destroy all 3 animatronics without a moment's hesitation and then use their upgrades on Freddy. He is willing to kill Vanny, like I said, despite actually seemingly knowing her, like we see in the best ending, and he burns Burn Trap multiple times in an attempt to stop him from taking control over Freddy. So, what the absolute living hell is this kid doing, and how is he so nonchalant about this whole thing? This guy kills Vanny and then only gets emotional when he has to go and talk to a destroyed Freddy. Like, dude, Vanny is literally bleeding out mere feet from you. Couldn't you have just said, like, stop Vanny or restrain Vanny, not freaking disassemble Vanny? I get that she said that about Freddy and it's fresh on your mind, but dude, you're not panicking about literally anything else. So just say something that doesn't involve a human dying, for God's sakes, especially if you know her. In it for fraud. Technically speaking, Gregory also commits fraud by getting into the Pizzaplex and the daycare center. The definition of fraud is, quote, wrongful or criminal deception intended to result in financial or personal gain. And he was personally gaining from using that Mr. Hippo magnet on the ticket machine and getting into the Pizzaplex for free. So within the first 25 minutes of the game, we're already committing multiple crimes. And if the magnet messed with the machine even more, then we end up committing at least 3 different crimes within the first 25 minutes. Theft, fraud, and vandalism if the machine gets messed up, not to mention the whole trespassing and breaking and entering thing. Yeah, Gregory has quite the rap sheet after this game. Even within the first hour of the game, this guy has some serious issues. Maybe this kid isn't Afton, considering how like nonchalant he is with committing so many freaking crimes. Getting close to the end into number 3, potential robot. The possibility that Gregory is a robot is still a thing at the time of recording. So let's talk about the random bits that make Gregory seem more like an animatronic than a human. There's the fact that he's literally smaller than a 4-year-old, however is able to speak full sentences and do literally everything else he does in this game, which seems like he's a rogue robot that's been active for a long time. He can also get all CRT, glitchy-eyed whenever Vanny's around, similar to an effect where you'd hold up a magnet to like one of those old TVs. It's kind of like that. There's Freddy's shock as to how he sees Gregory after getting Roxy's eyes, and there's also the fact that literally nothing else makes sense about him unless he is a robot. It explains why he's homeless, it explains why he's willing to kill, because you know, no moral code, why Vanny would be willing to bring him to William if he's supposed to be Crying Child but as a robot. It explains why Afton takes over Freddy and not Gregory if he's still meant to be Crying Child, and basically makes this whole game make a lot more sense. So, is he a robot? Currently unknown, but it is certainly a possibility. And ultimately, in at number 2, hacked animatronics. Assuming Gregory is Client 46, which is kind of required for this list, he's also guilty of hacking the animatronics, as we learned multiple times throughout his sessions. The only issue I have now is why is he hacking the animatronics? Like, he definitely had a purpose, since to quote Disc 16, what I understand is that the glitch stopped being a glitch and turned into an intentional set of subroutines that were aimed at creating the same thing the glitch created. Those subroutines seem to have come from you. Can you explain that? And I think that I can explain that. There's like a good and an evil motive for this hack, depending on which one they want to be canon. The evil motive would be that Gregory was just working with William and Vanessa, so he hacked the animatronics and made sure the glitch he caused instilled itself into the robots so that his work couldn't be undone, to end up distracting all the employees from what's really going on in the Pizzaplex. The good intention, which is the one I think would push the story further ahead, and is probably the more likely one, would be that he lied about his family to the therapist so that he could keep seeing them, and he would have more time in the company building so that he could hack the animatronics, causing them to malfunction in an effort to get the company or the FNAF AR special delivery project shut down. Hence why the glitch ended up being a closed loop where it was replicating itself over and over so it couldn't be deleted. And finally, in at number 1, kills Vanny. In the phaser blast ending, the one where you push the button instead of playing Princess Quest 3, Gregory actually orders the robots to disassemble Vanny. Gregory being willing to kill Vanny is so messed up, especially if this kid is meant to be like 10 or 11, which is what everyone seems to believe, even though I think he's 6. items. Even then, that's still pretty screwed, but you could argue that he doesn't know any better. But clearly, Gregory does know better. This kid is easily able to destroy all 3 animatronics without a moment's hesitation and then use their upgrades on Freddy. He is willing to kill Vanny, like I said, despite actually seemingly knowing her, like we see in the best ending, and he burns Burn Trap multiple times in an attempt to stop him from taking control over Freddy. So what the living hell is this kid doing, and how is he so nonchalant about this whole thing? This guy kills Vanny and then only gets emotional and starts crying when he has to talk to a destroyed Freddy. Like, dude, Vanny is literally gushing blood next to you. Like, right there. Couldn't you have just said, like, stop or restrain? Not freaking disassemble? Like, I get that she said that about Freddy and that it's up in your noggin, okay? But dude, you're not panicking about literally everything else that I've mentioned on this list. Gregory commits murder in one of the endings to this game. What the hell is this kid? Now, based on the points I made last time, there are a few things that we need to go over. Firstly, the breaking and entering does not apply in the actual game, but can come into play later on. He is 100% trespassing though, despite being locked inside. He actively hid inside of Freddy, like in his stomach, instead of leaving the Pizzaplex, which would make this trespassing. Every time I mention stealing, like in the merch, the security badges, even Freddy, there's no arguing that. He does in fact steal those. The main argument against these is that, well, he needs to do this to survive, which is blatantly not true. Okay, Freddy informs Gregory that the doors will reopen at 6 a.m. All Gregory needs to do at that point is just stay in Freddy's green room or the area behind it until 6. Nothing else was necessary in order for him to survive. The only problems occur when Gregory tries to get out sooner. He causes his own problems. Vanny only ends up knowing Gregory is in the Lost and Found because she put him there as Vanessa. So, with that logic in mind, Vanny would not have known that Gregory was in Freddy or Freddy's green room. He says that himself. And Vanessa does not check inside Freddy when you approach her while piloting him. So as far as the argument that he needed to do this to survive, no he didn't. Unless he ends up making the problems himself, which would completely destroy his case. So, glad we got that settled. One of the other points of contention was really everything else he did was in self-defense. He had to destroy the animatronics. He had to kill Vanny in the phaser blast ending, otherwise they would have killed him. But while self-defense does sometimes justify killing in order to protect yourself or your loved ones, this is typically used for human-on-human interactions. Human-on-robot interactions wouldn't necessarily fall under self-defense. The animatronics would have to be proven that they didn't intend to harm Gregory, and this could be done using code analysis and camera footage. However, we know that the animatronics were hacked, and whoever Client 46 is did the hacking. Now, if Client 46 is Gregory, which in the context of this world they would know, and the evidence seems to actually point to, the fact that the animatronics were after him could be seen as his fault, since he actually disturbed their original programming. This is also where the footage of him in the Pizzaplex would have come out, particularly the image where he was talking to someone with rabbit ears, thus showing the jury that Gregory and Vanny had a personal relationship, further hurting his case. Gregory by no means had to destroy the animatronics. He chose to do it. Freddy even asks him not to. Gregory didn't do it because he had to, he did it because he wanted revenge. He even says it himself, quote, "They get what they deserve." He was destroying them for revenge and to get the parts for Freddy, not so that they wouldn't hurt him, since after all they can still come and kill him after he destroys them. So he does destroy property because he wanted the animatronics to suffer, not because he had to in order to be safe again. Again, could have just hid in Freddy's room or somewhere else. People are also saying that he's homeless, so he has to steal. Firstly, homeless or not, it's still illegal to steal. And secondly, I don't think that he needs Roxy balloons, action figures, and stuffed characters in order to survive another day. I'm not saying that he shouldn't keep himself alive, I'm just saying that what he's doing is illegal, which is true no matter who you are. And anything I included in those numbers was not a story item, and instead the extra items that you do not need in order to beat the game. And you didn't need to steal Freddy at all. There's no justification for him running off with Freddy other than the fact that they're friends. But then again, it's grand larceny and illegal. One commenter decided to try and provide legal defense for Gregory in a lighthearted manner because that was also the point of the video, so I'd like to reply to Jason Ross's defense for the theft of security badges. Quote from his comment, "While this is technically a crime, I think he could make a strong case with any halfways decent lawyer that he did so out of necessity. He stole stuff to help further his attempts to escape unlawful confinement and other crimes committed against him. Stealing those items he stole was necessary to save himself. He would never have survived the night if if he didn't steal. First of all, you just outright admitted that it was a crime, which an actual attorney would have torn to shreds. Secondly, like I've been saying, he could have been hiding the entire time, okay? He would have survived if he had just hid until 6. He doesn't escape any sooner than 6 a.m. You progressing throughout the game just makes the time go to 6. He never escapes sooner. He did not have to steal the security badges. Unlawful confinement, as you said, is described as whoever wrongfully restrains a person as to prevent that person to move beyond a certain restricted limit is said to have committed the offense of wrongful confinement. However, nobody restrains Gregory, literally, as well. Like, they don't actually like time anything. He gets himself locked in the Pizzaplex. Nobody locked him in there intentionally. The doors close automatically at midnight, and he had plenty of time to leave, but didn't, and he chose to climb inside Freddy, which also ruins your argument against trespassing, which was also wrongful confinement. And for all intents and purposes, in the eyes of the law and any outsiders, Vanessa was actively trying to help him. There are recordings of her claiming to have called the police, which would have been verified certainly, but even if she had called them and claimed something else, the record of her calling 911 would be there. Most of Ross's case relies on unlawful confinement. However, staying in somewhere and then wanting to leave does not constitute unlawful confinement. And to the public, Vanessa was trying to help get him home, but he was avoiding her. We know that she was trying to kill him, but the public doesn't. Now for the biggest issue that everyone seemed to have with this list, the one that I'm sure y'all clicked on this video for. The claim that killing Vanny was murder and not self-defense. And this claim is really the reason I wanted to make this video, because I can't reply to every single comment that was referring to this, okay? Self-defense can be a defense to an assault, battery, and criminal homicide because it always involves the use of force. Most states have special requirements when the defendant uses deadly force in self-defense. Deadly force is defined as any force that could potentially kill. An individual does not have to actually die for the force to be considered deadly. Examples of deadly force are the use of a knife, gun, vehicle, or even bare hands when there is a disparity in size between the two individuals. Or, in this case, the use of animatronic robots to kill Vanny, as Gregory does in the Phaser Blast ending, which would also set a precedent for robots being counted as deadly force. To successfully claim self-defense, a defendant must prove 4 elements. First, with exceptions, the defendant must prove that he or she was confronted with an unprovoked attack. Second, the defendant must prove that the threat of injury or death was imminent. Third, the defendant must prove that the degree of force used in self-defense was objectively reasonable under the circumstances. And fourth, the defendant must prove that he or she had an objectively reasonable fear that he or she was going to be injured or killed unless he or she used self-defense. The Model Penal Code defines self-defense as justifiable when the actor believes that such force is immediately necessary for the purposes of protecting himself against the use of unlawful force by such other person on the present occasion. Okay, so I'm willing to admit that the attack was certainly unprovoked. Vanny did not need to come after him in order to get him out of the Pizzaplex. However, that second issue, the proof of threat of injury or death was imminent, is where things get complicated. At no point in the game does Vanny directly threaten Gregory with any words. Her voice lines include, "See you soon," "Disassemble Freddy," "There you are you having fun yet?" "Laughter," and "Let's have some fun." While menacing, none of these involve a direct threat. At no point in the game does she brandish a knife or even send the security bots after Gregory to disassemble him. She only sends the 3 main ones to collect him, who also make no appearance in this ending, therefore do not count. Yes, when she catches us we get a game over screen, but that's just us losing the game. That isn't necessarily us being killed. Us thinking that we get killed is simply an assumption because we don't see what happens next. However, in this case, since we made it to the end, Gregory had never been caught by Vanny. While yes, she does end up destroying an animatronic, it was just an animatronic. That's not really a threat on Gregory. Now, let's skip point number 3 for a minute and then move on to point number 4. That the defendant must prove that he or she had an objectively reasonable fear that he or she was going to be injured or killed unless they used self-defense. While yes, Gregory is a child, or seemingly a child, who would have a more extreme view of the world, he literally spent 6 hours running and hiding from Vanny, where he ended up surviving. In fact, he was right at the Pizzaplex door to leave, but instead instead of leaving, he chose to go after Vanny, thus turning this act of possible self-defense into a possible act of vigilantism, or even turning Gregory into the aggressor. He and Freddy went to confront Vanny. He says himself maybe that they can catch her in her room at Phaser Blast. Gregory could have left and survived, but chose not to, meaning that he cannot claim self-defense in an altercation that he created. And now for the final point. The defendant must prove that the degree of force used in self-defense was objectively reasonable under the circumstance. Now, being a child, there is a leeway as to what he would deem reasonable force, but in this case, it is absolutely not reasonable force. We see how destroyed Freddy is after he gets disassembled, okay? His chest and torso are gaping open. He had his insides ripped out. And then he even ends up dying in an animatronic sense, even though his body and his head have been shown to work separately. And then Gregory orders the same thing done to Vanny, a human who would be alive as the animatronics ripped her ribs and intestines from her body. Does that sound reasonable to you? Because killing in self-defense is easiest to claim when the death you cause is quick or painless. But Vanny suffered, and suffered hard. Even criminals on death row do not get this treatment. A serial killer with more kills than Vanny would just get the simple 2-dose lethal injection, where the first dose actually is intended to dull the pain of the second dose. Under absolutely no circumstances would Vanny being torn apart so badly that the comic panels won't even show it be considered the proper amount of force. Especially when he could have said anything to stop or break or even kill. He could have just said kill. This is absolutely over the top, especially given that Gregory seems to have known her if he is indeed Client 46, which is also hinted at during the Princess Quest ending, but since that's a different ending, that doesn't really count here. Which, if he was Client 46, that would have appeared in court. So what kind of charges and juvenile time is Gregory facing because of this? Well, if Gregory had Mac Murdock as a lawyer, let's say, or as someone who's also a really good lawyer, they could possibly argue that this would rather be manslaughter than murder. However, Gregory knows what disassemble means, so an argument that this was an accident would be very tough to pull off. But looking at the minimum sentence, there are 3 possible outcomes for how he'd be treated. 1, the child is so young or mentally incompetent to not understand what they've done and are excused for criminal and civil liability from their actions. Not the case for Gregory, who knew full well what was going on the entire time throughout this game. 2, the child is old enough to understand what they have done, but not old enough or lacking in evidence of sufficient premeditation to charge them as an adult, so they are charged and tried as juveniles, which could be the case for Gregory and is the most likely outcome. And then 3, the child is old enough to understand what they have done and there is evidence of planning and premeditation such that they can be deemed to have acted as an adult might, and they are charged as an adult, with the exception that minors may not be sentenced to death. Now, this could be the way that the courts decided to go, since after all, Gregory did intend on confronting Vanny, since he could have left the Pizzaplex but instead went after her. If he is Client 46 as well, the images of him breaking into the Pizzaplex before could be interpreted as premeditation, especially if he was investigating the Pizzaplex because of Vanny. The state could also argue that his intention was always to kill her. So, with these rules in mind, we will look at a minimum and maximum sentence. The minimum would be a manslaughter charge. However, unlike murder, manslaughter does not carry an automatic sentence of life imprisonment. It remains, however, an opinion for the court. But looking at the situation, things wouldn't look too good for Gregory. A 9-year sentence, which is not uncommon, would allow the offender to be paroled after serving 3 years of their sentence. If a firearm is involved in the offense though, a minimum sentence of 4 years is required. And while the weapon was not a firearm, it could be argued that since she was a distance from him that it could also be considered similar. So at least Gregory would be looking at 3 to 9 years for manslaughter. If he was charged with murder, however, he would absolutely be tried as an adult. And since this is the worst case, we'll go with first-degree murder since the court could consider this planned and deliberate. Those convicted of first-degree murder all receive the same sentence: life imprisonment with parole eligibility after 25 years. A 20-year-old convicted of first-degree murder will be eligible for parole at the age of 45, and if they behave themselves, then they're likely to receive parole. But considering Gregory's personality and your comments on that top 10 video, I doubt that he'd admit responsibility, show remorse. He doesn't seem like that kind of person. Although after 25 years, he may start looking at things differently, with new eyes, if you will. This is also if he ends up actually aging because he's a real human and not a robot like we're all thinking. And like if he doesn't age, a whole new investigation is gonna happen. So let's not get into that. And at 10, Freddy. The relationship with Freddy here is a very interesting but weird one, I'm going to have to admit. It's like the two characters, Gregory and Freddy, are brothers. But my concern is why Gregory is so confident that he wouldn't get caught, that he would crawl inside of Freddy. Like all the other animatronics have been programmed to track you down. So why would he think that Freddy was any different? Especially after parts in service, when Freddy could have easily been restored to factory settings or something like that. His trust in Freddy was so odd that I was certain we'd get betrayed by him at the end of the game, or in one of the endings. But no, every ending ends with Freddy staying by our side, even if it destroys him in the process. Gregory's trust and relationship with Glamrock Freddy is certainly a weird thing. And at 9, homeless. The fact that Gregory also appears to be homeless is an entirely other thing. Like normally, if a child is homeless or an orphan, he'd be taken to an orphanage or to family to stay with. Yet somehow, this child has been able to avoid every form of law enforcement that's noticed him, or just avoided detection altogether, and that seems fairly insane to me. However, these are also the police that couldn't find the original 5 missing children's bodies after the animatronics were literally leaking blood, but that's aside the point. You'd think that this kid, after being locked in a pizzaplex overnight, would be willing to go to an orphanage to make sure that he was safe, because, you know, a psychopathic killer bunny was after you for 6 hours. But no. My question is, why did Gregory just go and why did he hide in the pizzaplex if he was really homeless? Like, I'm sure that Freddy could have kept him in his green room and just let him sleep. Or hell, let Gregory sleep in his stomach while Freddy made sure that he was getting to the recharge stations every hour like he needed to normally. It just seems like it could have been avoided. And it should have been avoided. And at 8, height. Now, Gregory's height compared to his age has always been something that's bothered me. So, to really calculate how tall Gregory is, I did a good old pixel measurement off the Funko statue of Gregory and Freddy. Now, assuming that Glamrock Freddy's height is the same as Rockstar Freddy, which ends up being around 6.1 feet, which is, let's be honest, going to give Gregory the best chance here. That means that Freddy's 570 pixels in this instance, for how I was doing it, ends up being 6.1 feet. The opening that Gregory hides in, when being generous with my counting, was 118 pixels tall, averaging out to around 8.3 pixels per inch. 118 pixels, which keep in mind was generous, ends up equaling to about 14.21 inches or 1.18 feet. Going on various forums about children's car seats, I learned that the torso length of kids, while greatly varying, does end up being larger than 14.21 inches on average. Even a 4-year-old ended up having a torso of 15 inches. So Gregory ends up fitting his entire torso into the cavity with room to spare. I double checked the measurements because that just seemed off to me, and it still worked out properly. So Gregory's torso is smaller than that of a 4-year-old. So what the is going on here? And at 7, steals merch. While yes, Gregory does steal multiple items while we play the game, he's also stolen some stuff prior to the game starting. If you pay attention to his character model and some of the comic panels of various endings, we can see that his shirt and shoes, are at the very least, are Freddy Fazbear themed. They have Freddy's head on them, and considering how this kid has no home, sleeping in a cardboard box at the end of the worst ending, I doubt he could really afford to properly purchase Fazbear Entertainment clothing. And considering how he's breaking in, I feel like it's needless to say that he stole the clothes off of Fazbear's back. This is why they have to keep reopening, otherwise they'd be so bankrupt the current CEO, whoever they are, would end up having to actually also live in a cardboard box. This kid alone is the reason they can never fully close and have to keep reopening. Honestly, that's probably the only way them reopening makes sense, aside from them being money hungry who don't care about how many children actually perish for them to live their comfortable lives. And at 6, therapy. Gregory might have actually been going to therapy, but we're not certain if this was actually the case. This is possible though, thanks to the 16 retro CDs that can be found towards the end of the game, that can be played with a CD player in the hidden sister location room. The retro CDs require Roxanne's eye upgrade on Glamrock Freddy. Out of all 16 tapes though, half of them are for a patient labeled with the numbers 4-6. The other 8 are for Vanessa, however these are marked with the number 7-1. Patient 46 is very odd, never responding with words and never even being named. Some assume that this could be Vanny, however if that were the case, they wouldn't have another designation for her since they'd just think it's Vanessa. The issue also arises that they're being talked to as if they were a child, which would indicate Gregory. But only people associated with the company end up being evaluated by the shrink. So how could Gregory be associated with this company but not have a guest profile and be wiped from the hard drive? Client 46 also had their last 3 therapists disappear, with one of them turning up dead, and they don't really seem to mind, which lines up with Gregory being willing to kill Vanny in the phaser blast ending. So, maybe it is him. Halfway through into number 5, vandalism. Not only does Gregory damage multiple vents and vent covers throughout the game, but the main objective of the game is actually a crime. Yeah, that's right, you heard me. Us upgrading Freddy using the parts of other animatronics that we acquire through destructive means is indeed vandalism. Or it could be considered destruction of property instead if you wanted to head, I guess, maybe more of a specific route or in that direction. Either way, destroying these animatronics, despite them trying to get to us, is a crime. Technically, we don't know what happens when we get caught by an animatronic. Our screen cuts out before we see any real harm come to us, so we are assuming that we get killed, which is the likely scenario, but it's still merely an assumption. Plus, they're animatronics, so we can't really claim self-defense. I mean, like, I guess it would depend on the jury and the judge as to whether you could claim self-defense or not. Like, yeah, you feared for your life, but does that really call for hitting Roxy with a go-kart, crushing Chica in a trash compactor, and then smashing Monty with a giant bucket? Or could you just have, like, hid inside Freddy's green room the whole time? They could also even use the fact that Freddy was good and helping you as a reason as to why the rest wouldn't have hurt you. So yeah. In at 4, Vanessa. Like I just mentioned, his relationship with Vanessa also seemingly makes no sense. We're willing to kill her in one ending, she kills us in another, but if we free her from William's control, she ends up taking us out for ice cream, and we sit on a hill with Glamrock Freddy's head, no big deal. Like, this lady just spent 6 hours trying to kill you, bro. You think that it would be a little more difficult to just go out and chill with her, even if she did offer you ice cream? Like, would you get into her unmarked van if she offered you ice cream? I doubt it. So, like, why do you think this is a good idea? It seems like they're related, or at least know each other somehow, but no connection prior to this has ever been established. So, like, what the absolute living hell? And Gregory isn't mentioned in Vanessa's therapy sessions and vice versa. Vanessa isn't mentioned to Gregory in those sessions, if those sessions are for Gregory at least. But even if they are Gregory's, who made him associated with the company? It could have been Vanessa, but wouldn't they have ended up mentioning her odd behavior or asked Vanessa about her younger brother or foster brother or whatever the hell he is? Exactly. This is King 100% certified weird. Getting close to the end, and at number 3, grand larceny. Stealing a boatload of trinkets? Fine. Assuming that we gave a pass to Gregory, okay? He still commits grand larceny, which in the US is typically seen as stealing anything with a combined value of $400 or more, or something that would cost over $400 to replace in a reasonable amount of time. If we ignore the 87 collectible prize boxes found throughout the game, which would easily equal over $400, he still steals Freddy at the end of the game! In multiple endings, Freddy and Gregory leave without a care in the world, including the canon ending. And before you say, Connor, I'm calling BS, Freddy chose to leave with Gregory in those endings. Freddy is a robot. He is an animatronic. He cannot physically make that choice. He is property of Fazbear Entertainment. He is not a living being. He has no rights. He is an object in the most literal sense of the word, which makes me think that we need to start advocating for animatronic rights now. I mean, Freddy didn't consent to Gregory climbing inside him the first time, so Gregory in theory should be getting charged with a whole lot more than just grand larceny for stealing Freddy. And if you tell me that you don't think replacing Freddy in a reasonable amount of time would cost more than $400, I need you to leave this video. Thank you. He would probably be the most expensive one to replace, I'm sure. Penultimately, in at number 2, can drive. Gregory being able to drive the Fazbear van in the van ending is probably one of the biggest WTF moments in this entire game for me. Like, this kid is able to hide in baby strollers and can fit his torso into a 14-inch hole, but is also able to press the pedals on a van, not even a car, but like an actual van. How the living hell is that possible? I guess maybe perhaps he put like a brick on the gas pedal, but that seems like it would be an even worse idea and not very effective, depending on the brick. Like, how the living hell was Gregory able to drive that truck, or even know how to drive it? And how did Freddy allow that? Or like all his safety protocols off or something? Like, what the absolute living hell do we think is going on here? Because I have no clue. Gregory driving a car is 9 out of 10 on the weird scale, and honestly, in my opinion, King 100% certified weird. Like, who the thought that this made sense, and then didn't explain to us how he's driving the van? God damn it. And finally, in at number 1, knowledge. You know what I value more than the cars in my garage? Knowledge. Finally, the knowledge that this kid has exceeds even some of my own. This kid is the size of a 4-year-old, can fit inside Freddy, baby strollers, and various other small areas around the Pizzaplex. He's too small to go driving in one of the go-karts alone, but he knows how to restart generators, operate a trash compactor, start and drive a car, as well as identify a car battery, connect the jumper cables on a car battery properly, and then use those to fix Freddy's whole recharge every hour issue. How the living hell does that make any sense? And how do they solve that issue in the true ending? Because Freddy is still going to need to recharge every hour, and they don't have a van this time around. So how do Freddy and Gregory make it to the hill without Freddy needing to recharge? Or how do they solve that issue? This kid knows more words than I do, but somehow is still the size of a 4-year-old. Maybe even smaller. No, it makes absolutely no sense. And this kid's weird superpower is what makes this game so confusing. It really only makes sense if he's a robot that was supposed to mimic a toddler who's been operational for decades and has been learning this whole time. That's the only way that this makes any sense to me.